Imagine being kicked out of your home for following a dream that no one around you understands. The dream of being an artist, of living off your art, of expressing your soul through music, but being faced with the most painful rejection from the person you love the most. This was the beginning of a journey of overcoming, faith, and transformation. In today's video, you will learn the story of a young man who, even with a broken heart and the door to his house closed, kept going against all odds. He faced the pain of loneliness, doubt, and even the fear of never seeing his mother believe in him. But what he didn't know was that, by following his path, he would not only change his life, but also heal his relationship with his mother, finding in her a new admirer and fan of his talent. And most importantly, he would discover a greater purpose, one that went beyond just being an artist. If you have ever experienced difficult moments of rejection or overcoming, this video is for you. Subscribe to the channel because stories like this have the power to transform. Let's see how this journey of pain and overcoming unfolds. The story begins with a young dreamer, full of passion and hope. Since he was a child, he felt something inside him that he could not ignore, the desire to be an artist. His eyes would shine when he heard a song, saw a play, or even when he looked at a painting in a gallery. He knew he had something unique to offer the world, something that could not be contained. But there was a huge obstacle in front of him, the expectations of his family. His parents, especially his mother, did not understand his passion. For her son's future lay in stable and traditional careers, such as a doctor or an engineer. But he saw no point in following a path that was not his own. It was as if his soul was screaming for freedom and expression, while reality seemed to try to silence it. He knew that what he wanted was not just a passing phase. It was deeper, something that came from within, that made his heart beat faster. He decided he needed to take a risk, and that meant following his own path, even if it meant separating him from the security his family offered. But little did he know that his mother's reaction would be harsher than he imagined. The atmosphere at home began to change. The tension was palpable, as if the air had become thick and heavy. Every conversation with his mother became a silent battle, full of disapproving looks and cutting words. She, a strong woman, with a heart full of love but stuck in old patterns, couldn't understand why he didn't want to follow a safer path. To her, his dream was an illusion. With each passing day, she worried more, and their arguments became more intense. "You have no future in this," she said with sadness in her voice, a phrase that would echo in his mind for a long time. He tried to explain, but it seemed like his words didn't reach her. No matter how much he talked about his passion, about how art was his true calling, his mother saw only uncertainty and frustration. And then, what started as a disagreement turned into a fight. One night, after a particularly heated argument, his mother, with tears in her eyes, said something he never expected to hear. "You are no longer welcome here. If you think being an artist is more important than our family, then go." Those words cut deeper than any knife could. He fell silent, his heart pounding, pain mixed with a sense of relief, as if he were being forced to take a decisive step, but not knowing what would come next. With the door to his house closed behind him, he found himself staring into emptiness, not knowing what to do. But life, as always, had something else in store for him. He found himself alone, with no place to go, no support, no family to comfort him. The pain of rejection was overwhelming, but something inside him refused to give in. He knew he could not go back. He could not abandon his dreams. The street, cold and impersonal, seemed to reflect everything he felt, a vast and indifferent world. No money, no plans, just the certainty that if he wanted to make art his life, he would have to fight for every step. In the early days, the loneliness was almost unbearable. He slept on the streets or in hostels, looked for a corner where he could practice his guitar or write his songs, fed himself with whatever he could. But the dream was still there, pulsing, like a flame that refused to go out. He didn't know if he would be able to bear all that pain, but he knew he couldn't give up. Little by little, he met other artists and people who were in the same struggle. They shared their stories, their challenges, their small and big victories. A sense of belonging began to grow in him, something he never knew he lacked. He wasn't alone. There was an entire community of dreamers, and he was part of it. Amidst sleepless nights and days, without knowing what the future held, he began to realize that, although he had lost everything, there was something bigger beginning to emerge. Little by little, he got small jobs, performing in bars and cafes, places where no one really expected much from him, but where he began to test his limits. Every show, no matter how small the audience, was an opportunity to connect, to express everything he carried inside. But like every beginning, the road was full of obstacles. The performances were not perfect. Many times, he felt small in front of an uninterested audience, without reaction, just a distracted and indifferent crowd. There were nights when he returned to his improvised room feeling like he was fighting against something impossible. But there was something even more painful that he could not overcome: the lack of support from his mother. Even after so much time, he still felt that emptiness that her absence caused him. He did not know if she would ever believe in him. Each note of her music seemed to resonate louder in his mind, like a reminder of the price he was paying for his choice. The longing, the rejection, the uncertainty, all of it consumed him. But there was a fire inside him that could not be extinguished. Music was his escape valve, and he knew that if he did not continue, he would lose the only meaning left in his life. On one of those difficult days, an opportunity that seemed simple would change everything. One day, after a performance at a small bar, he was approached by a music producer who had heard him play. The producer seemed genuinely impressed and offered him the chance to record a demo and try to break into the music market. It was the opportunity he had been waiting for, the first real step towards achieving success. But deep down, he knew that this victory, although it was something he had always dreamed of, also carried with it a heavy emotional burden. He knew that, by taking this step, he would have to face again the reaction of his mother, the woman who had thrown him out of the house, who still did not accept his life choice. He feared that she would never understand what he was trying to achieve. With a heavy heart, he called his mother, trying to find the right words. He knew that she would not like the idea of seeing him in an industry like the music industry, full of uncertainty. But her response was different from what he imagined. She didn't reject him this time, but her voice, though softened by pain, still carried distrust. "What if this doesn't work out, son? What are you going to do?" she asked. Her concern was evident, but for the first time, he felt that she was willing to listen to him. It was a small opening, a glimmer of hope that, who knows, one day she might see what he saw in his own art. Although his mother was still skeptical, he couldn't let fear paralyze him. He decided to go ahead, but doubt about the future would follow him every step of the way. Recording the demo was just the beginning of a journey that proved to be even harder than he imagined. But the chance was there, and he couldn't let the fear of failure stop him. The producer who had discovered him believed in his potential and helped him get his music onto streaming platforms. At first, the views were few and far between, and he spent his nights waiting for a sign that he was on the right track. But slowly, things started to change. A song went viral, touching the hearts of people who, like him, felt lost but still held onto a glimmer of hope. Fame began to appear unexpectedly. He was invited to bigger shows, his music began to be played on the radio, and social media began to explode. He was finally living the life he had always dreamed of, but the feeling of achievement was mixed with a burden. The distance between him and his mother was still great. Amidst his success, he could not forget that the affection and acceptance he most desired came from someone who still did not believe in what he had become. It was then that, during a tour, he had a surprise. His mother, who until then had never shown any interest in his work, appeared in the dressing room before an important show. She, with a shy look, held 2 tickets in her hand, as if it were her way of apologizing. She said nothing, but her sincere smile spoke volumes. It was the first time she had come to him as a fan, no longer as a worried mother. The feeling of gratitude and healing was immense. He never imagined that such a moment could happen, but there she was, asking for tickets to her son's show. What he didn't know was that this meeting in the dressing room would not only be a reconciliation, but the beginning of something deeper and more transformative. The show that night was magical, not only because of the performance but because of what was happening backstage. His mother, now sitting in the audience, watched his every move on stage. He could feel her presence and something inside him began to change. The emotion he felt when he saw his mother's eyes, full of pride and admiration, was indescribable. It wasn't just about his professional achievement, but about the invisible bridge that was being rebuilt between them. The same bridge that had been destroyed years before with their fight and being kicked out of the house. After the show, he found her backstage, and before she could say anything, he hugged her. "I knew you could do it, son," she said, a tear escaping her eyes. That sentence, simple but full of meaning, was more powerful than any award or recognition he had ever received. The emotional distance that existed between them had been broken, and a new connection was beginning to be born. He realized that it wasn't just about proving something to his mother or to the world, but about rescuing their relationship, which had been marked by pain and misunderstanding. And at that moment, he knew that the real victory wasn't on the stage, but about what he had achieved in his heart: forgiveness, reconciliation, and acceptance. He thought that reconciliation with his mother was the end of the story. But what he didn't know was that this transformation was also about to affect his career in ways he never imagined. With his mother's renewed support, he felt an even greater inner strength to move forward. His career took off in an impressive way. He had sold out concerts, fans who were moved by his music, and recognition that had previously seemed impossible became a reality. But beyond fame and material success, he experienced something much more valuable: true transformation. He was no longer that insecure, aimless young man struggling to prove himself to others. Now he was someone who had overcome his own limitations, who had faced pain and rejection, and in the process, found his true strength. His mother, who had once thrown him out of the house, now accompanied him on his tours. She was not just a distant spectator, but a loyal fan, who was there at every show, her eyes full of pride. She would often ask him for tickets to his shows, as if she were a regular fan, but he knew that this meant so much more. That woman, who once doubted his dreams, was now by his side, witnessing the fruit of his faith and perseverance. What he didn't expect was that this turnaround would not only be about his personal success, but also about the impact he was having on the lives of those around him. The songs he composed, full of emotion and overcoming, began to touch many souls, and he realized that his purpose was much greater than he imagined. He wasn't there just to sing, but to bring a message of hope, resilience, and faith to those who needed to hear it. But the journey of transformation didn't end there. Deep down, he knew that there was still something much greater waiting for him. This young man's story shows us something profound about faith, perseverance, and the power of forgiveness. He not only achieved success, but also rebuilt the most important relationship in his life, with the mother who once didn't believe in him. Today, she is by his side, no longer as a critic, but as his biggest fan. Have you ever experienced something like this? Have you ever had a moment when, despite everything, you chose to follow your dreams? His journey teaches us that, even in the worst adversities, purpose and personal transformation can emerge. And you, what would you do if you were in his shoes? If you haven't subscribed yet, subscribe now so you don't miss out on more stories like this, which touch our hearts and make us reflect on our own journey. Share this video with someone who needs a reminder that it's never too late to start over and overcome any obstacle.